So next up for this kind of first half of our session today, we're going to look at two particular kind of models of collaboration within ADAPT. Big projects, multiple industry partners. The first one is about Precision ALS, and I'm not going to steal any of Kieran's thunder because my colleague Kieran Flynn is going to present on that, and then we're going to have some words from Orla Hardiman and some really interesting panellists who are involved in the project. And then we'll hand over to my colleague Edmund O'Connor, who'll be talking about a new model of collaboration that we've been really developing over the last couple of years around, we call it future technology labs or joint labs, and so some really interesting kind of insights there. And then I'll be back to you just to wrap up on that session. But for now, I'm going to hand over to Kieran. So,
oh, yeah. Thank you, Declan. Good afternoon, everyone. As Declan said, my name is Kieran Flynn. I'm a business development manager within the ADAPT Centre, and for the last number of years, I've been working on industry collaboration and engagement with the Precision ALS programme. So in this session, we're going to take a look at an example of collaborative research in Ireland through the lens of Precision ALS. We'll take a look at some of the key factors that led to the successful establishment of the Precision ALS programme, even during a period of global uncertainty, which was COVID-19. And we'll take a look at why this kind of research collaboration is important for Ireland, both nationally and internationally. So we're going to start with three short presentations that will introduce the Precision ALS programme to you. And also explain the nature of this unique collaboration between clinicians, industry partners, and academic data scientists. The programme was co-funded between Research Ireland and our industry partners on an equal 50-50 basis. And after the initial speakers, then we'll move on to a panel discussion. So I'd like to now introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is Professor Orla Hardiman. Professor Hardiman is the principal investigator whose drive, ambition and leadership led to the inception of Precision ALS. Unfortunately, Orla can't be with us here today, but she has recorded a presentation which we will listen to now.
Good morning. My name is Professor Orla Hardiman. I'm Professor of Neurology in Trinity College and I'm Consultant Neurologist in Beaumont Hospital. I'm really sorry that I can't attend this meeting in person to tell you about this exciting initiative that is Precision ALS. This is a definitive precision medicine approach towards new drug development in rare neurologic disorders. Good morning. Precision ALS focuses on ALS, or amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, in the first instance. This is a disease that I've studied for over 30 years. It's a progressive neurodegenerative condition. We have about 450 patients with this disease in Ireland at any one time. The lifetime risk of developing ALS is 1 in 300. It's a heterogeneous disease. We know that there are many different causes. It's rapidly progressive and fatal. There are no effective treatments. It's been in the news recently because of a prominent rugby player who has recently been diagnosed. It is a model of a rare disease, and this model is suited to a clinical data science collaborative approach. The motivation behind Precision ALS is that we recognise the need to address the extant research challenges to the translation of new pipeline therapies from animal models to human disease. What does this mean? It means that over the last 25 years or so, despite a significant amount of advancement in our understanding of the cell biology of neurodegeneration, using animal cell models, iPS cells and animal models, our ability to translate successes in the animal model domain to human domain has been poor. And the reason for this is because this disease is a human disease, and we don't have sufficient data to understand the various different iterations of this disease and how the translation from the animal model must be modulated to the human condition. In order for us to be able to do this, we must recognise the need for innovation. And this innovation must be grounded in a data-driven and precision medicine-based approach, because this is a rare disease, but it's also a heterogeneous disease. The vision, therefore, is to combine clinical data sets with high-level data science, innovative technologies, and the innovations within the pharma industry. We've done this by collaborating with colleagues within the Treatment Initiative to Cure ALS, so the TRICALS group, which is a European network of centres of excellence in ALS, of which I am co-chair, and working with colleagues in data science through ADAPT, and also with global industry leaders in the pharmaceuticals and data science and device technologies to integrate data sets. The purpose is to ensure that the right patient gets the right drug at the right time and at an affordable cost. But we don't yet know who the right patient is, nor do we have the right drug, and nor do we know what the right time is. So in order to achieve this, we must work together. Our clinicians like myself, linked with the FutureNeuro Research Ireland funded centre, and colleagues within the ADAPT Centre. The vision behind Precision ALS and the objectives that we have are to enable integration of multimodal data, not just clinical data, but data relating to every aspect of the patient, including their backstory, their socioeconomic status, their date of onset, the nature of their condition, but also blood-based biomarkers, imaging, neurophysiology, signal analysis, genomic data, and data that we can derive from device technology-based innovation. Collecting these data requires novel approaches. It also requires novel approaches towards data integration. Linking data from 20 sites is not trivial. Linking multimodal data is not trivial. We need to develop new technologies for interoperability and data analytics. And ultimately, we want to generate new knowledge that will provide data-driven and biologically coherent sub-cohorts of patients that will drive translational and clinical research in neurodegeneration. Why Ireland, and what makes Precision ALS possible? Well, we're global leaders in the field of ALS research. We've had decades of collaboration at clinical level across the sites within TRICALS among our colleagues. So we have a trusted research environment that has been in operation for the past 15 years. Within FutureNeuro, we have a centre for rare neurologic disease with high quality clinicians. Within ADAPT, the Research Ireland funded National Centre of Excellence in AI, machine learning and data science technology, we have the wherewithal to provide the data science underpinnings for this very ambitious project. And of course in Ireland, we have global industry leaders in pharma, in clinical and data science technologies. And these local industry leaders also have strong links and influence within their international parent corporations. Not only this, but we have access to highly educated researchers through our universities, and we have considerable flexibility to secure visas and work permits to recruit internationally where necessary, as is evidenced by the multinational cohorts of individuals who are working within the Precision ALS research group across Trinity and within the ADAPT group and within the FutureNeuro group. We're also we have very effective national frameworks for collaborative research. This is supported by Knowledge Transfer Ireland and by the expertise within our local universities with respect to legal knowledge exchange, data protection and these departments. What have we achieved to date? Well, we've achieved a considerable amount. We have 20 sites now that are actively recruiting. We, of course, have had to deal with many legal and ethical and governance challenges in relation to the very stringent GDPR legislation that came into place in 2016. And we've achieved this very successfully. And we have a consortium agreement in place that allows us to effectively data share across the multiple different sites that are participants in Precision ALS. We've also developed a new data collection technology and a data platform that we've established that continue to collect ongoing data. This will in turn allow us to collect effortlessly in the future as the technology develops. This is a big issue because for people like myself who are clinicians, collecting data is both time consuming and expensive. And if we can develop automated mechanisms by which we can achieve this, this will significantly enhance our ability to engage collaboratively with one another within the Precision ALS clinical consortium, but also in working with data science groups and wider industry. There's also considerable interest within the European Regulatory Authority in what we're doing, and we've engaged in a number of projects that are linked with some of the requirements of EMA in the future. We've achieved a significant amount of industry matching funding to participate and to make successful this very exciting project. And of course we have published extensively, and we have multiple meetings and consortium meetings and have been within the wider domain, both at academic level and in other ways of disseminating the success of what we've achieved. For example, we've published extensively on the European landscape, the findings from an extant data set that we generated from our trusted consortium over the past 15 years. This is a supplement that's come out in the International Journal Amyotrophic Lateral Sclerosis and the Frontotemporal Dementias, which is the flagship for the World Federation Neurology subgroup in Motor Neuron Disease, or ALS. Looking forward, the plan is to establish Precision ALS as the primary location of all ALS research across Europe. This is a work in progress, but is successful. Of course, we are also engaging with our colleagues in industry in the context of the EMA requirements in driving pan-European data access. And in the longer term, we plan to secure long-term sustainability to continue with our longitudinal data collection in as efficient a manner as is possible, so that we can continue to analyse prospective data indefinitely. Ultimately, the plan would be to migrate this platform, this very successful platform, to other disease claims. So in summary, Precision ALS represents a new approach towards precision medicine. It uniquely connects people, data, and technologies across disciplines and across borders. It will develop tangible progress for patients so that we really will be able to develop the right drug for the right patient at the right dose, in the right dose at the right time. And of course, it positions Ireland and Europe at the forefront of precision medicine research.
Okay, thanks Declan for bailing us out on the technology there. Never be trusted. I'd like to thank Professor Hardiman in her absence for her presentation. I hope it's given you a good overview of Precision ALS and what the program is. One of the key challenges going forward for the program is what Orla referred to there in one of her final slides, which is how to secure the sustainability of a program like this. So many programs, when they run their funding course, just cease. And the big challenge that we're looking at over the next couple of years is how to sustain the program going forward. And we look forward to working with our partners at Research Ireland and our industry partners in terms of the future of the program and where that goes. So now I'd like to move on and introduce Dr. Bronagh Hayden, our next speaker. Dr. Hayden is a life sciences medical director with over 15 years' experience leading medical affairs and clinical strategy across rare diseases, neurology and vaccines. She has held senior roles at Biogen and Sanofi Pasteur MSD, where she guided product launches, lifecycle management and patient support initiatives, including early access programs and gene and cell therapy development. Dr. Hayden.
I feel like I'm skipping the queue. Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you to the team for inviting me to this meeting today and to present and to join the panel. So I'm delighted to be here and specifically to talk about Precision ALS. Just a few words about my own career when we talk about collaboration. My own career started in academia, where I worked in research and in a teaching role in UCD. And then about 20 years ago, I moved into the pharmaceutical world. And at the time, in the mid-noughties, Ireland was changing and there was different opportunity. And it seemed like the right move for me at the time. And so over the last 20 years, I've worked in a number of different companies. So I've worked for Big Pharma, a British pharmaceutical company, GSK, where I worked across multiple therapeutic areas. I then moved to work for a vaccine company, a French vaccine company, specifically on the HPV vaccine. So that was a phenomenal project to work on, and I was involved in the implementation of the HPV vaccine program in Ireland. And then I moved to work for an American biotech company in the area of neurology and rare diseases. So very, very different companies, very, very different therapeutic areas, different cultures, big pharma, biotech, vaccines. I mean, they really are different, but they also have so many similarities because more often than not, the challenges are the same across the board. And the solutions are often similar as well. But it's given me a good breadth in terms of understanding the ecosystem and kind of how the wheels turn. It's quite similar, irrespective of whether it's biotech, big pharma, or a small company. Neurodegenerative, so neurology is a fascinating area to work in, and neurodegenerative diseases are highly complex, and the rare diseases like ALS are even more complex. And there is no doubt that one sector alone will never solve the complexities, and it's when all the pieces come together, when there's genuinely true partnership. You know, academia will bring the depth and the discovery, but industry can bring that scale and translation. So that partnership, the common goal for everyone working in the pharmaceutical industry and their therapeutic area is access to medicine, that patients can get access to the medicine that they're working on. So whether you're working in epidemiology or translational medicine, or you're on the 10th floor of a building and you never see a customer, but at the end of the day, if your drug never gets to market and if a patient doesn't get access, so that really is the common goal. Oh, pardon me. Is there? Okay, perfect. Precision ALS started with a really good foundation, and I would say really, really good bones. And by that, I'm thinking about the culture, and I'm thinking about the people that were involved. So the original kickoff meeting, I think, was late 2018 or early 2019. It's a couple of people in the room who were with me at that meeting that day. It was really, really inclusive. So members from pharma companies that worked in neurology were invited, data companies, CROs, there was academics, and there was neurologists. And everyone was brought together around a really, really large table. And everyone was there for the first pitch. Professor Hardiman is a neurologist, and she's a global expert in ALS. So she presented her vision around precision medicine. And Professor Vinnie McQuaid, who at the time was the director and the head of the ADAPT Centre, he presented on behalf of ADAPT in terms of the capabilities, the technology, and again, the vision. And it was really, really impressive. So you have global experts discussing their vision for this project and highlighting the capabilities of their talent within their various different departments. Now, when I left, the meeting was in Trinity. When I left and I was walking through the lovely grounds of Trinity, I knew in my mind, I thought, the scale and the ambition of this project, the kind of money that's going to be required, and the investment. So it was never going to be a one-year project. And while it has evolved, even from the beginning, it was really, really clear to see the ambition. So I knew straight away that I wasn't going to be able to get the money at a local level. So this was something that needed to go either to the regional offices or to the global. And that's what I set about doing in terms of selling, presenting this opportunity and selling it to colleagues. But it was about trying to find the right fit. So no one I spoke to thought it wasn't a good idea or didn't recognize the validity and the credibility of the people. But it really was about finding the right department, the right people, where there could be true partnership. And there's a component of this project that I've spoken with Orla about on many occasions, and that's about genuine collaboration. So there's collaboration where a company can come with a bag of money, step away, and then get outputs every 12 months or every 18 months. And that works fine. But this was a different kind of a project, and I felt really passionate when I started speaking with colleagues that I didn't even know were in my company, and realised the expertise in epidemiology and translational medicine, medical affairs, market access. I knew they could bring something to the table, like genuine. They could add value, they could bring knowledge, but equally I knew they could learn from people of the calibre of Professor Hardiman and Professor McQuaid and their teams. So this project from the beginning, the very first kickoff meeting was inclusive, and from then on, it was all about shared knowledge. So every meeting thereafter, the right people were around the table genuinely contributing, and I think that's one of the huge success factors of this project. Then Orla brought the TRICALS to the table. So initially the project was about Irish patients, bringing this European consortium. So Irish data, of course, is valuable, and Irish patients and what we can learn from that. But by bringing data from across Europe, from a company's perspective, now suddenly you're getting a European perspective. So it's the whole project was elevated. And the beauty then, on a personal note, was that the project is housed and the home of the project is in Trinity. And it's a real example of what can happen when the right people come together with the right ideas, with that, real strong vision and ambition to have a project of this calibre, pan-European project, but its home is Trinity College. So that's a remarkable achievement for everybody involved. We have within Ireland the best of the best in terms of our academics, our clinicians, our research facilities. I've worked in the industry for 20 years. Our Irish experts can stand shoulder to shoulder with the best internationally. And there is something unique about Ireland, and there is something unique about our attitude and the way that we do things in terms of how we collaborate. I think we don't overpromise, we're practical, but we deliver. And that's a really, really special kind of, people say, what's the secret sauce? And I think it's an Irishness, and it's something that's really important and that we need to showcase. I think Precision ALS is the perfect example of where you bring academic excellence, the clinical expertise, and the industry innovation. When you bring them together, you can deliver something of this magnitude. So it's been a pleasure to be part of it, and I look forward to seeing the next iteration of Precision. So thank you.
Thank you, Bronagh, for those words. I think it's really interesting what you pointed out, the importance of the strong local leadership here in Ireland and the ability to reach back to the parent organisations and to bring them on board. I think that's very significant. So appreciate your insights and thoughts on that. Thank you. So I'd like now to introduce our next speaker, who is Dr. Robert Ross. Robert is a senior lecturer at the Technological University Dublin and a principal investigator at the ADAPT Centre. Robert leads the machine learning and AI work package within Precision ALS. And I'm going to attempt to get his presentation back here.
That'll do fine.
There you go, sir.
Excellent.
Okay.
Now, let's make sure this is working technically. Yes. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and many thanks for coming along today. So, and I have to remember to speak here because everybody's down the back. Speaking after both Bronagh and Professor Hardiman is a very intimidating task, both because of the eloquence and the natural way in which the message is delivered, but also because they both remind us of just how challenging a disease like ALS can be and how devastating it can be for both patients and their families. So it's in that context that I'm quite, let's say, humbled to be here today, just to maybe tell you a little bit about some of the projects that from a data science perspective we're trying to contribute within ADAPT to try to address the challenges in ALS. So with that in mind, let me skip forward there to give you a little bit of context about the work I'm going to talk about here. And that context has to do with the fact that ALS, as mentioned earlier, is a rare disease. What does that mean? In simple terms, it means that in the great scheme of things, there aren't a lot of living patients with that disease. Now, of course, that's a good thing from one perspective, absolutely 100%, but from a clinical research and also a data science research perspective, that does present its own challenges. We don't have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of patients to work from. Instead, we have within Europe the order of a couple of thousand patients that we can gather data for. That means that the very task of trying to come up with solutions, medical cures, treatments, etc., is limited by that small number of patients which we can deal with. So I often refer to that, or we refer to that, as a little data problem, but there's also a big data aspect to it as well. As Professor Hardiman mentioned, for any given patient, they're interacting with clinicians and we're collecting tons and tons of information about those patients at any given time. So we have lots of biomarkers, we have genetic information, we have imaging data, etc. And for us as researchers, both from the clinical and the data science perspective, that does present its own particular types of headaches. So let me talk a little bit then about three projects. I've just taken three projects that we're involved in within Precision ALS that are trying to address that big little data challenge in different ways. And these are collaborative projects that are only possible due to the way in which we bring together the different sides of the research and industry and European partnership space together in Precision ALS. The first of these projects relates to, let's call it, the time series nature of data. What do I mean by that? I simply mean that if we think of a patient, they have, over the course of their illness, multiple interactions with clinicians. And at any one of those interactions, various different pieces of information are collected. Lots of different measurements, imaging results, etc. all of those different pieces of data, of course, they're not collected perfectly. One of the challenges we face with our clinical research partners is that the data is collected imperfectly. Things are missed, mistakes are made. This is the real world. So one of the big challenges we have is in developing methods that can look across that time series data with lots of missing information for lots of different patients, etc., and apply methods that can deal with it. So one of the projects we have running really tries to apply state-of-the-art methods like temporal knowledge graph embeddings that can look at this data, this imperfect data that evolves over time, and allow us to investigate it with state-of-the-art deep learning techniques and try to leverage large external data sources. I'm not trying to get into the details of how that works right now. If you want details on this, the project leader, Professor John Kelleher, is right here in the front of the room, and I'm sure he'd be happy to take questions later. But this is an example of a great collaborative project that we're involved within both with our clinical partners and also Accenture, our key partner on this particular project, for example. A second example of a project that we're involved in, not so much looking at that issue of the time domain, but instead, to some extent, think about geography. What do I mean by that? What I mean is, our data sets are being collected across Europe in multiple sites. A problem we have in machine learning sometimes, especially in that small data problem I talked to you about, is that we can have challenges learning models for one area or even one site and applying them successfully into other sites. Why is this a challenge? Because, of course, machine learning 101, what does machine learning do? What does deep learning AI do? It takes big data sets. We try to learn some sort of model from those data sets and produce some outputs. Exactly what the outputs are right here, we don't care. But generally, what all of those models are doing is they're trying to look for these distributions, these patternings of data underneath the hood. If you've got big data, if you've got industrial strength global data, there's enough there to generalize and learn from almost universally. But that's not what we have. We've got a challenge that you might see a particular patterning of the data in country X or country Y, but it mightn't be the same in country Z. It might be subtly different, or it might even be different over different time periods. It might even be different depending on who collected the data, because we're dealing with such small data that can be a challenge. So dealing with those differences is a big problem. It's particularly a problem when we start talking about issues like imaging data, where there can even be discrepancies from machine to machine, from imaging equipment to imaging equipment. And that's why one of the big projects we have ongoing is looking at advanced methods, things like adversarial neural networks, to try to allow us to learn a model for one country, for one site, and be able to relatively cheaply transform that over into other sites for new partnerships that come online as a project like this progresses. This, again, it's a collaborative project led in particular by my colleague, Professor Hayden in TU Dublin, who works with me. And again, we have a number of industry partners and European partners contributing data and expertise to this. The final one of the three that I'll just mention, because it is very much in the current zeitgeist of large language models and chatbots and so forth, it relates again to our big little data problem. But this time, it's the big part of the data problem. It's the fact that for any given patient, we have so many different variables. We have so many different sources of information. And what we want to do is to allow clinicians to easily interrogate that data, to pull out insights from that data. And that's by no means trivial. So what we're doing in this particular project is we're trying to allow our clinical partners to develop automatically greater insights into their data, to do it in a scalable way, to do it in a way that can be applied to new projects. So in a way, it is trying to provide the research infrastructure to do some really interesting downstream partnership projects. And how are we doing this? Well, of course, as I indicated, this is very much building on state-of-the-art large language model techniques where we're applying generative AI and chatbot technology to build safe, local solutions that allow our research partners to work with the data very quickly, based not only on the data that we have, but various sources of external information we can leverage. And this sort of work, again, it's collaborative, led by Dimple O'Sullivan in TU Dublin and myself, and funded in part through our partnerships with companies like IQVIA in this case. So that's maybe too much detail, but tried to give you a little flavour of what's really going on under the hood in some of these projects. But these are very much based on collaboration. They're based on bringing TRICALS, the European partners, the industry partners together, and it is very much an international effort. So with that in mind, and my final slide, I do want to thank the international team that supports us, part-time academics. So particularly Tamara, Mohammed and Irfan, they work day and night on this stuff. Many thanks to them, and on that I'll say thank you.
So thank you, Robert, for that overview of how we're applying the technology to the data that's being collected on the programme. So that concludes our three presentations. Now I'd like to move on to the panel discussion. Hopefully the presentations have set the scene and given you the background for that. So joining Bronagh and Robert on the panel, I'm delighted to introduce Rory Mullen. Rory is Head of Biopharma and Food at IDA Ireland and a member of the IDA's Management, Finance and Compliance Committees. Rory leads the attraction and development of global biopharma investment in Ireland and works across government and industry to ensure the sector continues to thrive. Rory Mullen. So thank you to the panelists for joining this session. So we've just heard how Precision ALS demonstrates Ireland's research excellence and collaboration in practice. I'd like to take a look now at the broader global picture and what's happening out there. And we've heard references to international collaboration and the global perspective. But I'd like to take a look at the role that the programs like Precision ALS can potentially play in ensuring that Ireland continues to deliver world-class research and attract global investment, even in ongoing uncertainty. So, Rory, perhaps if I could come to you first. There's a lot happening out there in the world today. From your vantage point in the IDA, how do you see the new geopolitical uncertainties impacting biopharma, and then how that, what are the implications of that from an Irish perspective?
Sure, I think the biopharma sector is very important to Ireland. About a third of IDA's jobs are in the life sciences sector. About half of those are in pharma, and it's doubled in about the last 10 or 12 years as a lot of the new biologic medicines have been manufactured in Ireland. In addition to the small molecule sector, it's a really important. It's the largest sector in terms of exports. It's the industrial sector that employs the most PhDs. And there's a massive associated multiplier effect through the capital investment, the design, the construction of all of these facilities. So it's really, really important to Ireland. And I suppose that's why the challenges now, as the global trade and investment landscape is being disrupted, is of concern to us. We can see over the next 5 years, I think we're going to continue to see the growth because nobody has rolled back from any of the decisions that they've made, and it takes up to 5 years to bring on that capacity for those for medicines to be coming out of those highly regulated factories. But the world has changed, and what are we going to be winning in 5 years' time? That's, I suppose, the major concern to us now. It is a highly regulated sector. As I said, we're going to see that expansion continuing over the next 4 or 5 years. But we're also seeing a huge focus on cost reduction across the industry. And whilst not fully embracing AI yet, I think because of the regulated nature, but how can AI be used either to improve the yields from manufacturing processes, to identify potential candidate molecules, or to speed up the amount of time in the clinic? We have, in addition to the commercial manufacturing sector we have here, we also have a lot of the sites developing now as launch sites with clinical manufacturing going on here as well. We have IQVIA, ICON, and ParExcel. We have a lot of the CROs working in the area as well, along with both Eli Lilly and Novartis have large clinical trial management operations in Ireland, so that's of interest to us as well. So it's how AI is going to address this problem that we have, in that we don't know what type of investments are going to be winning in 5 years' time. And that's why I think the example of Precision ALS and how the collaboration between the machine learning, the AI, and the clinicians and the clinical trial landscape, I think, is a great example of the sort of issues we're going to need to address to get the answers to those questions.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, the good news, if I pick the good news out of that, is that we effectively have a 5-year heads up in order to take action and make progress before the uncertainties of today kind of come upon us. Bronagh, perhaps picking up on Rory's points there about the uncertainties. I mean, you've been on the inside of global pharma, the decision making through uncertain times in the past. So, from your perspective, based on the current round of instability, how do you see it affecting industry's decision making?
Well, I think
So yeah, just press the button there. If you can. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So certainly the external factors are playing a huge role, and uncertainty definitely causes an element of paralysis for companies. It can pause decision making. It can sometimes pause expansion. Sometimes it can cause shrinkage. But not all company is at the same place at the same time. So there's the external factors, and we've seen that, like with what happened during COVID, we've seen how resilient the pharmaceutical industry is, specifically in Ireland. Seen how incredible examples of resilience. And we totally adapted our way of working. My life changed dramatically, as did many people's in this room. I think there are also internal challenges for companies. So some companies they might have a blockbuster that's about to come off patent, and that's enormous. And that's all fine if the pipeline is on track, but if there's a delay with the pipeline, then you have a gap. So that's a problem. Loss of exclusivity, a lot of competitors coming into the market, a delay with a license, a delay with reimbursement at a local level. There's lots of reasons. But what I will say, and what I've seen over the years and with different things that have happened over the last 20 years, companies are incredibly resilient, and the wheels have to keep turning, because at the end of the day, the medicines are required and patients can't wait. Certainly when we talk about these really cruel conditions like ALS, they're rare unless you're the person with the diagnosis. They're complicated. There's nothing. A diagnosis is given and there's nothing. So, companies are not the buildings, they're the people within the companies. And the people who've been involved in the development want to see that drug come to market. And the people working at a local level want to get that drug reimbursed. So, yes, I think the external factors at the moment, it's choppy. There's no question. It is choppy. Uncertainty is not great. But sometimes with uncertainty, people can become really innovative. And that's where new technologies, collaboration, shared ideas, where all of that can really come to the fore.
Yeah, very interesting insights there. I mean, I think the key point you're making is that industry is used to working in this kind of choppy environment. So that's no change, as it were. It's just a different set of uncertainties that you've got to deal with. Robert, if I could bring you in for a second. So Rory and Bronagh have talked about geopolitical and market uncertainties, but in your space, you're dealing with a different kind of uncertainty. The data itself is uncertain. You alluded to it in your presentation. So, I mean, from the technology side, how do you see Ireland's approach to data integrity and responsible data use strengthening, our reputation on the global stage going forward? How do you see that?
So, obviously, absolutely, Ireland lives in that unusual space of having access to data and a culture of research and researchers and companies who are willing to engage with whatever data can be provided. But let's call it a spade on this. Ireland is not in a position to say we're leading in terms of gathering that data at a national scale and providing access to it. But we're moving in the right direction. I think that's without a shadow of a doubt. And with that movement and looking at other advances such as the European data spaces coming online, etc., it is going to put us in a position where we're able to maybe unlock more data across Europe, both locally, but like I said, across Europe, and really use that as a lever to build further partnerships in terms of studies, new clinical trials, etc. But it is a challenge for us. Like, being realistic, it's often said Ireland is, it's small enough to test on as a test environment, which is a great thing, yeah. But so we need to build on that more, but that's going to take partnership, that's going to take the public sector and different bodies within the public sector opening the door on data a little bit more. And God knows, as an academic working in this space, I've seen challenges over the years in terms of ethics. Our data protection approach has often been criticised in the last 5 years as being maybe a little bit too conservative in terms of trying to get ethical approval covered, to try to make sure that the data protection offices in the relevant universities aren't producing too many roadblocks. But I think Precision ALS has proven and shows that actually, no, we can do what needs to be done. So I think things are way more positive than they were. And interestingly, if I could just come back to the geopolitical issue, and I'm certainly not qualified to speak about that from a socio or political perspective, but as an observer, and speaking to my friends and colleagues who work in the pharma companies in the US as well, what they're seeing is, and I don't, Rory might dismiss this completely, but with the pullback and clawback in federal funding in the States for research and development, they're starting to say and ask questions like, okay, we're going to be building factories to produce these drugs, but are we going to still have the same amount of human capital in terms of the development of the drugs? And is there an opportunity for Ireland and for Europe to take advantage of that shift? That maybe, okay, the US wants to move more manufacturing of drugs inland, but maybe we have an opportunity to step in to a higher point in the food chain.
It's a very interesting point. Yeah, Rory.
Yeah, I think there'll be challenges even at the amount of capacity expansion that's been announced in the US. I think there will be constraints around both the talent and the engineering and construction capabilities to do that. Certainly, I think there's been a lot more. It's been the announcement itself has been more important, and a lot of those plans had already been made. On the positive side, I mean, what is, there is a continued growth in demand for medicines. There is a very strong pipeline of new medicines across multiple modalities being developed. Still almost half of the new FDA approvals are in small molecule medicines. Then you've got the new cell and gene therapies, the conjugates, the antibody drug conjugates, we're seeing a lot of interest in people standing up their capabilities in that regard. On the overall monoclonal antibody side, global capacity is growing at 7% a year. So it is an ever-growing pie. Yep. I think there will be more manufacturing stood up in the US, but we're certainly seeing companies adopting a more region-for-region strategy. and across all levels of their activity, that they're not going to put all their eggs in one basket. They're unlikely to manufacture, I think, anything in the US for any markets outside of the US. You see companies moving their product around to ensure that they have that their primary manufacturing is in the region where the patients live, but they'll then require for contingency, and they'll require backup plans to that as well. So I don't think we will see any reduction in the investment in manufacturing capability in Europe. I think China is the more interesting piece. The Biosecure Act hasn't gone away. The amount of money that the Chinese government is funding on research over the last 50 years, probably a lot of the pharmaceutical development has moved from Europe to the US. Is China going to be the next wave? Certainly. Tariffs are talked about a lot, but amongst the clients I'm dealing with, they're probably not even in the top 3 of their concerns with regard to the current administration. You know, how it's treating vaccines, the funding for the NIH. Probably the one that's of most concern to them is the most favoured nation pricing, and the profits of the multinationals, and the research that's going into drug development has been coming primarily from the US patients. You know, so how that's going to be addressed. So there is so much uncertainty, which is, I think we're seeing pause in new decisions. But because of that shortage of capacity, nobody is rolling back on the decisions that they made up until the end of last year, which is what gives us that little bit of breathing space, I think. But I think there are opportunities on the research side, and we saw this already with Brexit. We saw that when highly skilled researchers weren't felt as welcome in the country they were in. There were opportunities, and I think there will be similarly. I think we will see that from particularly the international cohort that traditionally gravitated towards America.
Bronagh, I see you're nodding your head there.
Just wanted to make just on what you've said there about just changes in terms of the key players as well. So if you look at the top 10 pharma companies that were the top 10 in the US 10, 15 years ago, while many of them are still in the top 10, there's some new players. So if there's some new players, some people have fallen out of the top 10. And that's because the areas of growth at the moment are around the GLP-1 molecules in obesity and diabetes, oncology and immunology. So, you know, it's like everything. They're the big players at the moment, and that has a ripple effect then for other companies that maybe they're, you know, fallen off that list. So all of these things play a role, and they're internal as well. Yeah.
And thankfully, we have all of the top 10 US now have manufacturing operations in Ireland, with the exception of Vertex, who doesn't have any manufacturing operations anywhere.
It's incredible. Yeah.
And if I just add to that, I think what is going to be interesting to see over the next 10 years, 5 years realistically, is how, and remembering this is an ADAPT event as well, how AI and generative AI, large language models and technologies built on them are going to make the real difference for some companies in terms of their development cycles. Because, you know, a question I often get asked is, why haven't one of these technologies already spat out the latest, greatest thing? I think it's worth keeping in mind that it's not so much about any of these technologies that we develop suddenly coming up with the next big thing. It's the acceleration pathway that they give us, that the companies who are using the technology correctly, they're looking at development times being reduced, maybe only being reduced by 20% or 30%, but that's massive in the great scheme of things, particularly when you're rushing to get drugs out there as quickly as possible.
Yeah, a lot of the big, just on that, a lot of the big pharma companies have bought small tech companies for that technology, for that expertise, and they're working collaboratively with them. And I think it's over 160 molecules at the moment that have been identified through AI. I mean, one thing that companies have is lots of data, but a lot of it is in silos.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big, I think, conundrums that that companies need to look at. How do you clean it?
Yeah.
And then how do you have it, house it together? So that's just a little problem for you to solve.
People want to fund us. That's absolutely.
And it is that data, the amount of molecules on the shelf. If you listen to Luke O'Neill talking where Implazone came from, which was a Pfizer molecule that had developed some side effects and was just parked somewhere. And they came across it for another reason. But when that data can all be mined, but as I said, it's all in silos.
Yeah.
It mightn't even be digitized, some of it, you know.
Yeah.
So there,
sure.
and it's still a minuscule amount of data compared to the data that the large large language models have to work with. You know, as you were saying, the small data problem, because it's not that there aren't trillions of it. But all of the companies they're trying to figure out how, whether it's in discovery, clinical trial management, manufacturing processes, in all of those areas, all of our client companies are embracing, and as you say, whether their purchasing companies are getting involved in it. So I think that's what I was saying. This is a great example of it, but it is early stages for the industry because it's so highly regulated. In addition to the data regulation, you have the pharma.
Okay, I'm sorry to have to cut in on this conversation now, but I know that there's someone down there really concerned about timekeeping right now. I think though what I've detected from the conversation here was a sense of optimism within uncertainty, which I think is impressive, and I think it's really exciting that optimism and opportunity is there. And I'd like to just get some closing comments from the panel, if I could. Rory, I mean, if uncertainty remains the norm, what does Ireland focus on? What's the key thing we need to focus on?
Ireland needs to focus on what it can control, whether that's on the housing, energy, water, and all of that infrastructure, the funding that we put into the future through the research in our universities and through the research centres and through Research Ireland. Focus on what we can control. When we're asked, what do our companies think of the tariffs, or what do they think of this, or what the companies are resilient. They will operate in whatever environment is there. They will adapt to and change it. So Ireland needs to continue to focus on what we can control. The companies will operate in whatever environment is there.
Right. Bronagh, from the industry perspective, next big step for Ireland, your thoughts, what do you see?
Well, I think one of the key things is showcasing Irish talent and Irish capabilities. And really, there's no replacement for people meeting face to face. So bringing senior people from big buildings in other parts of the world over to Ireland so that they can meet the experts, that they can see the capabilities. We can tell them, but it's only when they come, they have that aha moment. Yeah. They can do it. I think that's really, really important. And it doesn't matter about how challenging the environment is. We can continue to do that. So when things settle, we're ready to go, and that we're front of mind as a country that companies want to do business with, because we can make things happen. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and Robert, just to close us out, someone working at the cutting edge of technology, what's your vision for Ireland's research landscape going forward in the years ahead?
Can I say that for me, it isn't so much about the specific technology or the specific field of AI or machine learning. For me, it's about the human capital. Right? We need, as a country, to continue what we've done really well for the last 10 years, which was develop the human capital either through the training of PhDs or postdocs and the supporting of collaborative research, as we're talking about here today. So I want to see that develop. Pity Dermot has left as I say that. But I think we absolutely have to see that developed. And I also want to see, and people who know me know that this is one of my talking points at the moment, more in terms of the development of indigenous industry, indigenous technologies, even if that is simply to be bought out at some point by larger companies. But we shouldn't be just producing a pipeline of PhDs to go straight in only to the large companies. They should have that staging ground to develop innovative technologies, to really try to push things out there. And yes, I'm realistic. They'll be snapped up eventually. But that's fine. That's part of a better process than maybe as we've done it up to this date.
Okay, thank you. So I think we've come to the end of our session here now. I'd like to thank our speakers and panellists, Orla initially, Bronagh, Robert, Rory, for your interesting presentations and insightful thoughts and comments. Appreciate that. So what we've heard today it reinforces just how powerful collaboration can be when it's built on a shared purpose. Precision ALS has shown that Ireland can bring together clinical expertise, data science and industry expertise to deliver something that genuinely moves the needle for patients, and it does so on a European scale. I think that's really important. We've also heard that even in uncertain global environment, there is real opportunity, and I think optimism in terms of where we go. So if we continue to invest in talent, infrastructure and trust, Ireland's strength lies in its people, its connected ecosystem and its ability to turn collaboration into action. So as we look ahead, the challenge and the opportunity is to build on the momentum of programs like Precision ALS and what that has achieved as a model of how we can tackle other complex research challenges. I thank you all. Unfortunately, we haven't had any time for audience questions, but the panelists and myself will be outside during the break, so hopefully talk to you. And please thank me, or please thank the panelists for their contribution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.